Is there a relationship between the annual gross domestic product of a country and its unemployment rate? The per capita gross domestic product, also known as GDP per capita of a country, is the monetary measure of all goods and services produced within a country during a time frame divided by the population of the country. This quantity thus measures the average value of all goods and services produced by a single member of the population of a country. The unemployment rate of a country gives the percentage of its population that is actively searching for employment but excluded from the workforce. This study explores the relationship between the unemployment rate of a country and the per capita gross domestic product of the same country. Prior to conducting the study, it was predicted that an increase in the unemployment rate of a country would result in a decrease in the per capita gross domestic product of the same country. The data was collected by taking a simple random sample of 23 countries out of a population of 230 countries in the world, whose unemployment rate and GDP per capita is published as of the year 2016. All 230 countries are first listed alphabetically and then assigned a number 1 through 230. A random number generator was then used to select 23 unique numbers, and the countries corresponding to the 23 numbers selected were used in the study. The GDP of each of the 23 countries was then taken from the International Monetary Fund statistics, and the unemployment rate of each of the 23 countries was then taken from the International Labor Organization statistics. The data points were plotted on a scatter plot with GDP per capita as the dependent variable and unemployment rate as the independent variable. The least squares regression line generated from the set of data is given as y hat is equal to 29,473.8 minus 402.967x, where x is the unemployment rate of a country in percent, and y hat is the predicted corresponding GDP per capita in US dollars. The study attempts to determine if there is a linear relationship between the unemployment rate of a country and its GDP per capita. A one-sided significance test for the population regression line slope is conducted to analyze this set of data. The null hypothesis is that the slope of the population regression line of unemployment rate versus GDP per capita is 0, and the alternative hypothesis is that the slope of the population regression line of unemployment rate versus GDP per capita is negative, or less than 0. We conducted this test at an alpha significance level of 0.05. If the conditions are met, we will use a t-test for the slope. The linear condition is met because the residual plot of the least squares regression line contains only random scatter and does not show a clear leftover pattern. The independence condition is met because the 23 sampled countries make up 10% of the population of 230 countries in the world. Furthermore, the normal condition is satisfied because the normal probability plot of the residuals approximately follow the linear pattern of the expected z-values. The equal standard deviation condition is met because the residuals on the residual plot are roughly the same distance vertically from the residual equals 0 line across all x values. Lastly, the random condition is satisfied because simple random sampling was used to select the 23 countries that were used in the study. The formula for the test statistic is b, the sample slope, which is negative 402.967, minus beta from the null hypothesis, which is 0, divided by the standard error of the slope. The standard error of the slope was found using this formula, where s is the standard deviation of the residuals, 24,327.8, s sub x is the standard deviation of the x values, or unemployment rate, 4.852, and n equals 23 countries. Therefore, standard error was calculated to be 1068.98. With this value of standard error, we can find our test statistic with the formula above, acquiring a t-value of negative 0.377. With this t-value of about negative 0.377, we can calculate the p-value of the t-distribution with 21 degrees of freedom. The p-value of this test was determined to be 0.355. Since the p-value of 0.355 is greater than the stated significance level of alpha equals 0.05, we fail to reject the null hypothesis. We do not have convincing evidence that an increase in unemployment rate is related to a decrease in per capita GDP of a country. Our project topic allowed for an easy data collection, but because there was only published data on 230 countries, we could only collect a random sample of 23 countries in order to satisfy the 10% condition. Additionally, although our results were evidently statistically insignificant, taking a larger sample could have led to more accurate conclusions. Our scope of inference is also limited to the countries on which there is published data for, not necessarily all countries in the world. In other words, the results from the study can only be generalized to the population of the 230 countries on which there is data for GDP per capita and unemployment rate. Thanks for watching!